Okay, yeah, I'm having to do it again and again and again and again. Yeah. So in any case, yeah. So like yeah. Once again, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Um, and this particular person, once again, um, I might know her name and not realize it. I'm almost assuming something about proper English numerical composition and why one pronoun, the four types of pronouns, going to be used as a subject. Um, I might know her name and not realize it. The thing with this is that I'm referring to her, not necessarily because it might sound like a pronoun, her, but it does sound that way, huh? But anyway, yeah, so like I was thinking about that because this particular person being like LaSix laser corrective eye surgery, it's kind of like thinking about, all the lighting, um, really, really beginning like when I was like putting myself on YouTube.com, had quite a bit of equipment for like a recording studio with two synthesizers, a Yamaha Modi X 6 and a Roland Juno 88 like synthesizer, really really good ones. I would have got the Yamaha Montage 8 flagship. That was automatically the first one I was going to get. But I had an issue about like getting as much of what I needed for like a recording studio. Um, Similarly, I'm going to have to do a little bit more than maybe normal just to yeah. So like anyway, so like in any case, so like this laser that you're seeing on me now is like what you see on my channel at Wade SB Pretty PRDDY at YouTube.com. And this particular person seemed to be the thing about LaSix laser corrective eye surgery. Um, on the west side of Houston, and something there in Abraham Lincoln. I mean, I refer to it that because I mean it has ultimately gotten to the Lincoln Continental hood ornament being the rectangle, um, representing like international financial management, and on like the golf course, the rectangles. Abraham Lincoln uh, is almost like Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I mean about a baptism. Okay, the thing with this is that Abraham Lincoln presents the idea of the information. In any case, so it presents like the platform as the balcony in history involving Abraham Lincoln, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. What is identified with Abraham Lincoln as a balcony is like the platform could be a plateau. But the thing with it is that the information with Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania is like terminology of like a baptismal booth, being the Social Security Administration's Network Operations Center. And it seems that Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania presents information likewise. In addition, um, you've heard the thing about Wilkes. I mean, it's almost the assumption anyone in public education hearing anything about John Wilkes Booth. But the thing is like, in any case, even if it's John Wilkes Booth, I mean, it's like automatically like John the Baptist. Yes, you've heard it referred to involving Abraham Lincoln about the balcony. Um, might be referred to as maybe the thought of a platform in architecture. Um, the thing is that Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania presents Social Security Administration Network Operations Center, and it seemed to be, I mean, that information in the way of like a baptism. And the only thing about a balcony of John Wilkes Booth and Abraham Lincoln is that really John Wilkes Booth in my thing is not necessarily about the balcony or Abraham Lincoln, but it's like John the Baptist. I mean, automatically, like now, the normal, probably the first perception of Wilkes would probably be possibly, the automatic thought going through education involving Abraham Lincoln anyway. But it seemed to be the rectangles identifying Abraham Lincoln, Lincoln Continental as like the rectangle of the car, Lincoln Continental, and identifying like international financial management of SAN software is really what that is. I mean, anyone who's like really getting into like linguistic alphanumerics will find all that information and realize, the analytical and symbolic about, just the match and identify with the information will, thoroughly arrive. I mean, even especially going through a circuit and realizing, something about that. Um, yeah, so like all that information is like an analytical and symbolic option, like it's an acronym, but it's not an acronym. All that being led to believe stuff in constitutional law, I mean, it's like seriously not it's just seriously not funny. Um, with that information being led, I mean, without going to church or religion or anything or a knowledge of Christianity or any of that information, would probably think the automatic thought of the name Wilkes would be something of history involving Abraham Lincoln in the balcony. That's not what I'm really talking about. I'm talking about really that the name John Wilkes in history involving the balcony and Abraham Lincoln is just the name John, and automatically I mean John the Baptist. Okay, I mean for real. Okay, um, yeah. So like all this information about Six Flag baptism is like on a symbolic and analytical, not thought of as an acronym. I mean at all, but in reality, when an acronym has the option, it will ultimately get to thought of like a symbolic and analytical anyway of an acronym. And when a circuit uses it that way, other than what's normally presented as the norm, would be maybe the thought of that only available information would be the automatic assumption based on probably not the experience of like knowing or experiencing something about probably in my mind automatically a circuit or a participating factor at a degree level that uses the acronym in a way other than maybe what it's presented as. Um, maybe would identify maybe a domain name of like a website of like a corporation or how acronyms are used. Normally, it's either a 3 or 4 acronym. Normally, when 5 letter acronyms are involved, it's a little bit more of like a degree level of major universities. It's normally an academic thing about graduates. Normally of Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi that normally uses 5 letter acronyms in whatever way it needs to be. I mean, it seemed to be that in legal terminology of international law as well as electronics with 5 letter acronyms, it seemed to be having that international electronic engineering factor in OPEC and international law of like international law firms more so than the 3 letter acronyms that would maybe be the automatic uh, perception maybe of the thought of maybe Mercedes Benz somewhere between the Pentagon and the Octagon. It's almost in my mind like the 3 point of pi squared 3 point a Mercedes thing, and all that information. But yeah, so like I was thinking about that and all the sliding that I had gotten, and this particular person is a current resident is the deal about the coupon in my mailbox. Okay, and once again, hey, wow, look who's in the mailbox. And the thing of it is that, I mean, yours are like, just this right here was not really what I'm talking about now. But when I got all the sliding that you're seeing, like inside this tent now on me, as well as like on the tent, um, it's like the Brian Adams video. Do I have to say the words in Elton John, Lucy in the Sky, and follow the girl? Um, yeah, with kaleidoscope eyes. And it's kind of like, what you're seeing there on the 3D animated fractal animation is considered the HD colors, splendor of color, kaleidoscope splendor of color is what you're seeing as a fractal animation. It's identified as a 3D, 3 dimensional, but it's my thought that it's really more of a 2D. It expands and contracts, doesn't really show the depth like real 3D. It's identified as 3D animation, but it looks really more 2 dimensional because it still looks like it's not has the depth. It just expands outward and inward, then give that perception of depth. But that is the fractal animation of like the different patterns that you're seeing on the tent from a projector. All the other like looking like little banners and different shapes and sequences of lasers and other than that fractal animation, it looks like a wall mural a live wall mural. I think it has like probably more than 100 sequences of that one. It's about a 2 hour like DVD that I'm using on my projector right now. You'll see it like all the time on my channel at Wait It's Be Pretty PRDDY YouTube.com. But it's like the Elton John song. It's like Dream Theater likewise. Um, that one like that one that you're seeing like right now. I mean, it seems to be like the Elton John thing, the Dream Theater thing, the Bryan Adams thing. Um, do I have to say the words? Um, I mean, it's almost like I'm looking at it and I'm like wondering if what Bryan Adams is wearing in that video. Um, do I have to say the words? If it's like binocular type involving night vision, I'm just now like thinking about it like the Elton John song, "Follow the Girl with the Kaleidoscope Eyes." But the thing with this is kind of like Austin Powers um, and LaSix laser corrective eye surgery. I mean, this particular person, um, it's kind of like almost like that Neutrogena commercial, and that one specific spokesperson she's referring to. This is a keeper. I wasn't really thinking of the Promise Keepers thing, but I was kind of like thinking about this keeper. Hey, this is keeper, yeah. So like wow, um, yeah, for real. So like I mean, like years are like going on, and it's like I have a whole new different perception when I got my lighting. Um, LaSix laser corrective eye surgeries. It's kind of like thinking about that and in a whole different way. And I was like getting the perception based upon going through the Stargate program. Really, is what the deal is. And now it's kind of like the kaleidoscope is it's HD colors, a kaleidoscope splendor of color, fractal animation. Is what that is. It looks like a live mural of all kinds of patterns, colors, and sequences, and that's what you're seeing right now. But it seemed to be that Elton John song, "Lucy in the Sky," "Follow the Girl with the Kaleidoscope Eyes." That it seemed to be the Bryan Adams video. Do I have to say the words? And I'm wondering. I mean, he's got like a shield, like a transparent shield, yet like the rear window of that taxi, Invincible Turkey taxi. That seemed to be the thing about like a convoy of like a burial in a mind's eye thing about going through a Stargate program. But anyway, yeah. So like in any case, yeah. So like you seem to be the Ford Aerospace question. Have you driven a Ford lately? All these things are going on with like the Affordable Connectivity Program. And have you driven a Ford lately? It's almost like I'm looking at Bryan Adams in that one video, and it looks like a 1972 Ford Pinto window, similar to the Istanbul taxi that he's in the music video, an Istanbul Turkey. It's also a symbol, an Istanbul symbol, like drummers like know that a symbol. You have the right to a symbol. So like in any case, yeah. So like I was kind of like wondering, well, I mean, are those the kaleidoscope eyes that Elton John sang about in Lucy in the Sky? A Dream Theater's talking about. Um, I don't even know the name of the title, but it's got like the 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 Earth as a point of view with like the shape of like the Earth with the light shining on the outer edge. But the song is "Surrender to Reason," and in the beginning of the lyrics were "Hard mind collide," and I'm not sure what to think about it. Um, but it seemed to be the mind's eye thing about something about um, the song. Yeah, it seemed to be the thing about the kaleidoscope and some of their lyrics and on that particular like compact disc. In any case, so like I was thinking about that because beginning of the year 2020, when I like really started putting like all the lighting like you see, not limited to that's inside this tent that normally isn't in my home. I'm probably going to get maybe a little bit bigger one. I'm trying to actually get like electricity again. We're Texas New Mexico Power that doesn't have that doesn't have the same setup or interchangeable or compatible with the center point energy. I'm wanting Texas New Mexico Power not to be interchangeable with like center point as a smart meter, as um, a distribution like a provider. Um, yeah. Anyway, it's the TDSP, uh, the delivery service provider. The TX, I have to think about it. But anyway, I don't want it to be interchangeable like CenterPoint Energy or any other. I want to make sure that Texas New Mexico Power is Texas New Mexico Power and not interchangeable with any other smart meter, and different from, and have the new setup when it's like set inside that it can't be interchangeable with anything other than Texas New Mexico Power itself. And I'm really wanting Texas City, Texas to be. I mean, like the entire headquarters for the entire state of Texas. I mean, for real, including like New Mexico. And I'm wanting to make sure that it's Texas New Mexico Power, not necessarily a question of like Region Zero or Region One being the United States and Canada, um, or carbon footprint absentee voting, or mechanics land, or so I did the North American Free Trade Act and North Atlantic Peace Treaties Organization in the form of like trading energy. But anyway, so like I was thinking about all this stuff, and that might be the idea of dimensional clause. Um, with the DC thing about Washington DC and television, the 130, and the electronic god, and a degreed circuit, a dimensional clause, a direct circuit, and the DC thing about it. Excuse me. So like I was thinking about that lighting and this one particular person because um it seemed that the way I'm thinking about her now is like completely more than the automatic. Wow, look who's in a mailbox. Um, More on it. Identified as like a current resident. The idea of a pronoun even, but not. But it's almost my idea to think that geographics making what's available geographically. I mean, it's included like this particular person in the coupon, and would probably almost anticipate someone like me, and I am, referring to her, and it seemed to be thinking about, almost proper English American composition at the same time. And I've heard it. Why one pronoun of four types of pronouns is going to be used as a subject? Well, anyway, yeah. So like I'm kind of like really thinking about that. I mean, is that really the thing about the pronoun as a current resident? Yeah, I'm kind of like thinking about that. I mean, is that really the real deal about it? Excuse me. Yeah. So like in any case, yes. Like I have a whole new perception, and including like the Austin Powers movie, that seems to be the wheelbarrow. Here's the thing about the wheelbarrow. Once again, it's like the American Express Bluebird card and a Sammy Hagar song, "Returning Home," about the green and blue, the color of the sea. And the thing about the sea, it almost seemed to be like Powers' word in 10cc, about an I think it's EI or IE. It's like I-10. I mean, like a color code of like E pluribus UNUM, the UN being like Los Angeles and 35 and Austin Powers and Highway 35 here in Pearland, and UM being like the University of Miami, and color code about the word in the degree of attenuation being, the alpha max of 140 in Pearland, Texas, um, with the UA in it as attenuation, and when the UA is not in, it's like attention. Um, the UA, the AU thing about, the word attenuation involving digital signal processing, ultimately getting to some idea of um, the Boolean chart, principles of digital audio. And it seemed to be the thing about the wheelbarrow of an Austin Powers movie of this person, like, once again, um, it seemed to be virtual identical perfection, yet with green eyes in the Austin Power movie, and she's like in that wheelbarrow for like, I mean, a few seconds, and all that talk about like it seemed to be whether or not if it's really presidentials and governors like by word of mouth as parental guidance is hearsay or the old saying thing about Chicken Little being like the sky is falling. In my mind, it's almost like really not cool, but it's almost like the principles of digital audio and author William Pullman. I've seen it Robert Pohlmann and William Pullman, of the author of Principles of Digital Audio. It's got like one raindrop on water, and like Dream Theater uses that one drop like as like a looping factor in one of their concerts. But it's like the front cover of that Principles of Digital Audio that has the Boolean chart in it, that has symbolic representation of the Stargate program, and the Boolean chart. Excuse me, about secrecy and characterization and statistics in audio production. Um, and a VPN being about the Alpha 6 and the Vice President Network. Ultimately, the only two letters that seem to be of the B in venue, and Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi being the 23 English alphabetical letters in the acronyms of Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi being 23 of them. Yet the W of like my name or the thing about in my mind Roe v. Wade, and the Wind Buffalo Nickel being the thing about coffee. The fake news being a Wind Buffalo Nickel, ultimately getting to 84 lumber. 84 being like MC, or the thing about states plural, alphabet plural, 65 plural being thing about 84. In any case, so like it had led to like some of that information that that the Wood Buffalo Nickels, like something about 84 in Austin. Like fake news is like 84, okay, but Donald Trump like referring to fake news seemed to be the only thing about it is like maybe my birth year 1964 being a factor of like Roe being on the news and it being based upon the year 1964. It's like the fake news of one Buffalo nickel of coffee. It's kind of like, really, I don't really think that I'm anything fake about it, other than maybe, I mean, is there like something else I need to know? I'm at 61 years of age, and now it's the year 2026, January, okay? I have to get used to saying 2026, okay? Um, January 2026. I'm 61 years of age, okay? The thing with this is that Roe, when they show it on television, it previously hasn't had the W in it, but when the W is put in the name Roe, it still sounds the same, but it has a different alphanumeric value of 61, and it's no longer fake news. Me on YouTube is getting perception of just like me talking about it. My name is Wade, okay? Wade Sterling, pretty, yeah, all right, yeah. The alphanumeric is 213, and I'm thinking about the thing about amphibious that automatically in my mind, which really was about a 2-year period of looking for a name other than mine that was like amphibious in my mind that would have to be, I mean, the requirement of a name I was looking for. Didn't really know what I was looking for, but it took me about close to 2 years to arrive that Aryan Skynes of Latin would be probably the best name representing the J. Edgar Hoover thing about being amphibious, the thing about being beyond if it likes the beachfront or sand software. Or the thought of maybe what importing and exporting only presents as immigration custom enforcement as a vice president network of like presidents, yet immigration custom enforcement of vice president networks as international law of like international banking systems of like importing and exporting and certain practical application of degrees that would be like automatically about that as compared to what would maybe be maybe only thought of pie chart of business law But the centric triangles of like playing horizons, I mean, of importing and exporting, predominantly more so of like gross domestic product. Um, Normally the thing about maybe being in a neighborhood of monetary and domestic aggregates about, the wood, fake news, the wooden buffalo nickel. The thing about 84 lumber being like an MC made of wood, I mean, is that like the fake news of a neighborhood? Well, now, like, okay, excuse me, I'm having a .com community coffee, Wooden Buffalo relapse. I'm having a relapse. I'm having a Wooden Buffalo fake news community coffee issue here. Um, I'm, I'm trying to, like, kick the habit. So, like, having to clear my throat and having this, like, issue about air quality and everything that's led to, like, the real, um, I don't know if it just has to be fake news or, having a form of godliness, but denying, like, the economic factors of, the cost of living interior design at random color coordination, with, like, all American name brand. Yeah, it's kind of like memories like the corners of my mind. Misty watercolor memory of the way we were. Scattered pictures. Yeah, it's kind of like, don't tell me it's a food fight, okay? Yeah, all American name brand, yeah. Color coordinated cost of living interior design, yeah. That's what's going on in here, yeah. So, like, in the case, so, like, it's, I know that sounds good, yeah. Yeah, so, like, anyway, so, like, in any case, so, like, back in the, uh, think about, my lighting in the beginning of the year 2020, I started getting the perception of 2020 and, like, Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs. And the thing about LaSix, laser corrective eye surgery, is kind of like using the stars for perfect 10/10 vision. Um, Sometimes the humor about, the planetarium and a zoom lens, but Robert E. Rubin, okay, is the Secretary of Treasury. His name, E. Rubin, the way it's spelled in the King James Version Bible, the Reubin is alphanumeric 69, yet one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the tribe of scribes, and them using the stars for navigation is still isometric. I mean, all the way back then. The thing about Robert E. Rubin, okay, is that the president, Paul Walker, in the book Secrets of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country, during the Ronald Reagan administration, uh, when Ronald Reagan called Paul Walker to go to Washington, D.C., to get the economic situation in order and on track, the economy, he gave him two positions as economic advisor and Secretary of Treasury, um, predominantly working with, if not, that actual participating factor as that. The thing with this is that those two positions, although Paul Volcker, the president, the name in the book, how true it is, but in any case, Paul Volcker, the president of the Newark Federal Reserve Bank, more so identifies the U.S. dollar as a president. Him going to Washington, D.C., called by Ronald Reagan, the laser Reagan administration, seemed to be, something like not funny about it. In any case, so like him placing Paul Volcker in those positions is really what Robert E. Rubin, the United States Secretary of Treasury, really is. I mean, like, anyway. And it seemed to be like the current event, um, a principal, even of a current resident, the prefix of the White House, and all this stuff that's going on had led me, to like looking at this particular person in a whole different way and talk about her a whole different way than, the original, like, hey, wow, look who's in the mailbox. And the prefix of the White House, because of like certain factors involving like lasers, and it served as a point of origin, really, that led to the first prefix, the number of the prefix of the White House, the number 4, and 5 and 6 being like 56, or Drummer Plaza. Ultimately, in 1995, in the Midnight Blue, um, in the FBI's acronym that identifies like the Air Force One, President of the United States, Air Force One, as a Midnight Blue, seemed to be the only one and only year the FBI and it seemed to be the only anything about anyone, and it seemed to be the only thing, and it's the FBI acronym that seemed to be the thing about protecting regions of the idea. You've seen it like on many movies. The movie is protected by the FBI, and you're looking at an acronym. Um, it's not necessarily there's like Region One, United States and Canada. There's Region Two, the European region. There's like Region Zero of like any place like on the planet. Um, and might not be ever talked or thought of as other regions having fair use of Region Zero, just like intellectual property is having fair use of an entire Region Zero. Are really not funny. Um, so like the euro dollar being something like in my mind automatically of the backside of the US $1 bill, even Centerpoint Energy, it's almost like a Region 2 of like Europe using having fair use of like Region 0, like being 20, and the alphabet of 20 being 107, this actual county road. It's almost like Mercedes-Benz introducing the Smart for Two smart car, and Smart for Two has ultimately been, Smart for Two. It's like almost now immediately like Texas New Mexico Power, yet Centerpoint Energy is like, in my mind, something European of the euro dollar having fair use of Region 0, and like any region on the entire planet having fair use of Region 0, but it seemed to be the Centerpoint Energy smart meter and Mercedes-Benz introducing the smart car, Smart for Two, as the European standard having fair use of Region 0, as the alphabet of 20 being 107, and like this kind of road I'm on like right now. And I never thought of it that way, but it seemed to be the thing about North American Free Trade Act and trade in energy. Even thought maybe, I'm not just going to sit here and say anything, that would maybe reflect maybe the way of maybe, the real deal about it being that way. Not that it has to be, or anything that's ever been said about, like anyway. But the thing with this is that North American Free Trade Act, or trade in energy, has been available information, and seemed to be the thing about, what it's led now to, like me using a generator. Yeah, so like in any case, so like I like not funny already, okay. But the thing with this is that this one particular person, like once again, it's like really like not cool, but at the same time, this particular person in Austin Power movies, like virtual identical identity, like the perfection with green eyes in the wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrow, okay, it's two words, okay. It's like the alphabet of 109, like governor or Los Angeles, okay. Um, the misappropriation allocation of Mississippi seemed to be the principle on the backside of the US $1. You know that normally there would be, hey, there's supposed to be two eyes. And that was like the ISS and SSI, the Mississippi, the misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi, and international superstar and supplemental security income. And I'll talk about the PPI and the PPO and HMO like later. But it seemed to be the thing about, the wheelbarrow in that movie and the green and blue, the color C, and this one particular person I'm looking at, and the coupon. I think about her in a whole different way. And the memory minus the fact of going through the Stargate program seemed to be, the thing about, you've heard saying probably as like a preteen, Chicken Little, Skyfall. In my particular situation, it seemed to be like, something about that in the wheelbarrow. Having the book, Principles of Digital Audio, and the author William Pohlmann, and being the pole, seemed to be, the idea of something in the wheelbarrow, and, how the sheetrock got like on my floor, okay? And I was like really kind of like upset. And, everything I've been talking about, I kind of like slow it down because like really what I'm talking about now seemed to be like me having that book, Principles of Digital Audio, and the author, William Pohlmann, and a hole being drilled in my roof and a pole stuck down and knocking my sheetrock off my ceiling onto my floor. I was like really kind of like upset. And I was kind of like thinking about it. I'm thinking, in any case, so like, I had the book, okay. I mean, is that really the real issue? But anyway, she's in the Austin Powers movie, and I was like thinking, well, I mean, and I mean, if that's what the thing is, like, what I need to know, and maybe think about something memory mine's de facto. Well, that's the way I'm thinking now about it. The thing is in that book that Kiefer Sutherland is in the television series 24 about the West Wing and the White House, the Blue Angels, and the California Angels. The Boolean chart is seen to be the only two letters about going through the circuit in the American Express Bluebird card, going beyond the Bluebird bus and placed on an Airbus and taken to Geneva, Switzerland, the BN venue about human civil rights during the Stargate program. I mean, during a bunch of air raids. I mean, I don't remember quite a bit about it. I mean, I'm not quite sure like why all that's like even happening, but it seemed to be. I mean, what seemed to be the significance of like alphanumerics, like memory minus tobacco being 35, um, in Austin Powers and Interstate 35 in Austin, and Highway 35 here in Pearland, but taken to the BN venue, feeling like going through the circuit as becoming like itemized, the alphanumerics 141 on the expenditure side, and like placing um, an Airbus H-160 helicopter. I'm almost for certain that's how I got there. I'm really not sure, but I know I was like in one and hardly remember anything about it. But according to the information of like certain like infomercials involving that, it seemed to be something of Geneva, Switzerland. I'm almost for certain that's how I got there, how I was taken there. Um, I'm not real clear about how I got there, but I know that it was probably the time frame and what was involved. I'm even thinking about the Tony Orlando and Don song, "Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree." It's been 3 long years, and it seemed to be like the projected estimate option in the future of thinking that maybe someone like me, and it is me, like talking this way, thinking that finding 1995 as the FBI's acronym, the one you're identifying, Midnight Blue is like the Soviet Union's jet, and uh, the Air Force One of the President of the United States being in Midnight Blue itself, and actually seeing it and realizing the alphanumerics of like Trump and Vladimir being 88, I don't know what to think about it really. Um, I'm actually thinking about something going through the Stargate program that may have been locations actually both. As a matter of fact, I'm almost for certain that yes, it is both. Remembering something about the Kremlin. Um, and a bunch of white and gold stuff. Likewise, in addition, after realizing something about memories minus the facto, after being on YouTube for like 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, I had mentioned something about, you know, the first time when I knew that memory had been a phenomenally huge thing, seemingly involving like a bunch of music videos that were starting to be placed and like shown on YouTube.com. And I'd realized for the first time, um, only because of a screensaver of Europe's most wealthiest museum, having that black and white color code would ultimately seem to be like a museum for like dead people, okay? And my question, is it the Hall of Souls in the movie of Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze and the Seven Signs, the Seven Seal? I mean, is that the Hall of Soul for it is written thing about it? I don't remember anything much other than that hallway, but it seemed to be the color code of the Holy Seagull with two L's being 137 in Clear Lake, Texas, and the space shuttle being the black and white thing, and even Univision and the three pastels in the black and the three pastels in the white. It's almost in my mind like automatically like a Remo black dot drumhead and an Aquarium Power white dot drumhead. But it seemed to be, the black and white interior of the Lexus LFSA. Um, quite a bit of information in this immediate area. Univision actually used to be right at Highway 59 and West Loop 610. And it's like the loop squared seemed to be the thing about, the southwest corner of the Loop 610 is probably the only corner of the entire loop that's squared. uh, probably closest to the 9 degree that could probably maybe be found. Um, but it's like right at, Braeswood and like, Post Oak that goes all the way to the Transco Tower is really the thing about it that ultimately get to me, like on my YouTube.com channel at WadeSV, Pretty BRDD, White YouTube.com, talking about, Lockheed Martin's 2 arrows, 4 lines of 3 intersecting axes, having a 232, symbolic and analytical reading, and it's almost like a Green Acres, da 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 da. And ultimately, looking at the shelf on the wall and deciding that, I was going to do something on the exact opposite side of the wall that started out as 2 vertical lines. My thought of absolute values, because up under the shelf is like 2 triangles. Automatically, think about, a 6-point star, or 2 delta forces. Um, the triangle in electronics is an electronic schematic symbol of the triangle representing the delta, like a pyramid triangle. And that one shelf on a row of like state, federal, local authorities, the Fred Flintstone bedrock amenities on a row, the executive suite of like, um, yeah, that fact, yeah. So like anyway, I was looking at that wall and decided that shelf was like, you know, more to it. Automatically, I'm looking at it like a 6-point star with the Star of David, and, the Israeli flag, and a code blue thing, and a 6-point star being like 138 and Donald Trump. Um, I'm looking at the wall, and as a point of view, with like looking at it, it's like the 2 triangles under the shelf at a straight ahead point of view would look like 2 vertical lines. So that's where I started at, on the exact opposite side of the wall. It ultimately got to 5 eccentric triangles overlapping each other and having a symbolic and analytical reading, the exact opposite of Lockheed Martin. 2 earth lines and 3 intersecting axes, but the 5 eccentric triangles was like a 3-2-3. Yet it seemed to be the loop squared of like the one corner of the entire loop, being at Braeswood and like South Post Oak, going straight to like the Transco Tower. Transco Tower turning into the Williams Tower. And I'll actually have to think about anything more than what I know about it. It seems to be like the location at Milam, when it was like Allied Bank in the beginning, not really identified, but a known fact. In inner loop of Houston, and a lot of people call it downtown. I prefer calling it uptown. Um, the high rise inner loop side of Milam being the thing about Allied Bank, and then it turned to Wells Fargo, and then to like the Williams Tower. The Transco Tower turned to the Williams Tower, and Allied Bank, then Wells Fargo at the same location on Milam. Ultimately, it's kind of like the pi r squared and the E equal MC squared of those 2 buildings, and the 232. It's like back and forth. The 323, the 232 between Lockheed Martin and the 5 eccentric triangles on the wall, with just like it changing from like Allied Bank to Wells Fargo to the Williams Tower at 3 different like names on like a high rise tower power. And like Transco turned into Williams Tower. It's like the 2 and the 3 of those 2 locations, but it's like the loop squared right there at Braeswood and like South Post Oak, going straight to the Transco Tower. And that analytical reading of the 5 eccentric triangles, it's like the Fifth Dimension song "Up in the Air, My Beautiful Balloon," about the hot air balloons on the cover of like Orion Performance Monitoring, the mandatory requirements of a rainbow, ultimately getting from Orion to Orion and AOL. The same thing about Apple and Oracle, Orion and Orion, and the L being, the thing about, being 13 all straight down to, sort of like a 64, and, all the way up to being 12, like the first of the last 4 of the Social Security Administration's phone number of 12 and 13, the LNM of like Lockheed Martin and Legal Media. Yeah, so like anyway, so like I was thinking about that, and this one particular person, I was thinking about that because um, me thinking about that wheelbarrow of like um, what has the virtual identical perfection with Green Eyes and Austin Powers movie in the wheelbarrow for a few seconds, as like automatically in my mind it's like 109, and the 4 letters of like for it is written written being like the Alphabet 109 itself, or writs of habeas corpus, or auditing legal media, um, seem to be thinking about the mind's eye of like for it is written involving. It seemed to be even more so of like a military bureau determined of the mind's eye. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. So like anyway, I'm trying to maintain that and not have this issue of like clearing my throat and coughing, and hopefully that will end like immediately, like real soon. I'm not liking it like really at all. So like anyway, so like in any case, so like yeah so that thing about the bullying chart and the book Principles of Digital Audio with the author William Pohlmann is it's almost like I'm having this lighting thing, like my own of like special effects lighting, be using for like music videos, and I'm thinking about this person in coupon laser electric eye surgery in a whole different way about lighting. In any case, so like the thing about the wheelbarrow, it got to the point of like the author of William Pullman. I mean, someone drilled holes in my roof, and obviously my sheetrock was on the floor. And I mean, I was like really kind of like not cool, upset about it. Okay, and I was trying to stay calm about it, and I mean, I hadn't done a thing about it. I mean, for like, I mean, a long time, and I would have, but like so much others like really going on, and really physically was like being like seriously like not really in the physical shape. So I mean, to even clean it up, and it got beyond like far beyond like so not cool about it. But anyway, I was like thinking about it, and it seemed to me having a book with the author Robert Pullman. It's almost like the Chicken Little, the sky is falling. And it's not really that at all. It's not really the Chicken Little thing. I mean, at all, other than maybe panning for McDonald's chicken McNuggets in the river, panning for McDonald's chicken McNuggets with a Chinese walk, being baptized during the gold rush on a Wells Fargo stagecoach. Um, the yellow gold thing, it seemed to be like possibly the thing about the Police and Synchronicity album cover with the red, blue, and the yellow gold. It's more of the yellow gold. Yellow being the alphabetics of like 92 in Pentagon or Drummer and gold about the McDonald's golden arches representing the two half cycles above the equator or the center line of oscillation as a degree level based on a symbolic analytical perception of degree to non-degree about one cycle of frequency that changes in pitch and tone because of digital signal processing speed. Yet in waveform, a more advanced degree, the waveform doesn't change its pitch or tone, speeding up or slowing down, processing speed just doesn't change it. It's like a degree level of McDonald's golden arches being side by side of a degree level above the frequency of like a 13 band graphic equalizer. It doesn't change. It's like together. like graduating would be like the change of like frequency of one cycle half above and below over the letter N that would maybe identify maybe what two delta forces is of neighborhoods of monetary and domestic aggregates more so than the degree level, more so plane horizons, the eccentric triangles of import and exporting of like, the thing about um, the eccentric triangles more so than the pie chart of like business law. Um, it seemed to be the thing about, the frequency being like a student, yet at a 90 degrees, the point about, I think that becoming the principle of becoming side by side as a dimensional clause, as like some idea of a 90-degree becoming a point of origin of military time of like the equator, yet that symbolic representation of half a cycle above and below at a 90-degree presents that circle with a dot in it, like the 7-point crown of the Statue of Liberty. In the beginning, the Statue of Liberty's 7-point crown was more shaped like a pylon, a cone. It has changed several times over the years, but in the beginning, it's like a telepathic teepee of a Native American Indian. And the thing about, really behavior that ultimately seems to be the thing about, the idea of an aggregate as having the right to assemble like a Native American Indian on a reservation, and what behavior normally means going through the circuit. Yet the Statue of Liberty, really involved that way. Um, yeah, so like any case, so like yeah, this thing about like American history, hopefully like including like Calamity Jane and Statue of Liberty, the Eurodollar, and all that information of import and exporting, and yay, all right, yeah. So like anyway, it's already going on 50 minutes, but I was thinking about that Austin Powers movie, and here's the thing, real quick, is that the wheelbarrow would like the principle of like there's supposed to be like two I's, ISS, and the I thing applied to the wheelbarrow, the SS twice with like 100 um, and 9, with two S's being like a total of 38 combined would be the alphabetics of 137. Like Robert E. Rubin, the United States Secretary of Treasury. Robert E. Rubin, he seemed to me, so it like a current event, a current affair, a current resident, the name of an endorsement. Where's the human capital in your life? It seemed to me that he is the guy that represents a daily standard transaction at the bank, and where human capital's at, and the information of a current event, a current affair, uh, a current resident. It's not necessarily the history or ignored as retroactive presidential administration, yet access as that. That's the way I see Robert E. Rubin, of like, the current event, the signature on the daily standard transaction, most people might call payday, endorsing their own checks, and really not see more in other than going to the bank and only doing that. They have some meaning and value, and maybe might not even think about human capital, or, where's human capital in that endorsement. Robert E. Rubin seemed to be, that one professional executive of a CFO, a CEO. His involvement with Citigroup, and the United States Secretary of Treasury. Likewise, in addition, being in Detroit, where General Motors' whole entire point of General Motors being Detroit and like the headquarter capital of de facto. Normally, de facto would be the thought of like television programming in one way, of litigation, um, deed restrictions as like only what lifespan would mean as television programming between like litigation, de facto, and rich habeas corpus, as compared to lifespan meaning settlement of what seemed to be only involving depreciation as a deed restriction, becomes the idea of annuity as appreciation, maybe the thought of maybe going beyond the neighborhood, involving like, venues that some people might not consider a living quarter, but might see that in a stationary engineer of a building, and might maybe consider the thought of even a venue of living quarter only because of one guy identified as a stationary engineer. Like a United States Secretary of Treasury. It's like the thing about it is like a commercial venue of living quarter of a stationary engineer. In pronunciation and linguistic alphanumerics, it's like depreciation because of something like a stationary engineer. Um, Not limited to the thought of maintenance, but a stationary engineer covers quite a bit about the idea of appreciation. Um, Not necessarily the thought of maybe a disregard of upkeep, but a constant, as a stationary engineer presents with like high rise and commercial venues, as compared to residential, is really the real issue about a stationary engineer in my mind. Even the VIN number of like transportation. In any case, so like it's going on 54 minutes and 44 seconds right now. I'm going to go ahead and kind of like round it up here, but it seemed to be the thing that 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 one particular person, once again, real quick, about the Austin Powers movie with the virtual identical like perfection of like with green eyes in the wheelbarrow. of Austin Power movie, and this like LaSix laser corrective eye surgery automatically faces international. In any case, so like um, yeah, so like it seemed to be that wheelbarrow with like two S two S's being like wheels and barrels being the alphabet 147. And it seemed to be that William Pullman. I mean, someone drilled like holes in my roof and took poles and knocked my sheetrock down to the floor. Okay, and like several rooms. Okay, and I was like thinking about all this information and already on YouTube, and then like that had happened like quite some time ago. I just hadn't talked about it. I hadn't really done anything about it because I really wasn't going to. Likewise, I really wasn't in the physical condition to actually have the ability, and got really upset about the entire situation. And now it looks like the cost of living, interior design, or like name brand, products. Yeah. So like anyway, so like I'm fixing to maybe start cleaning it up. Um, but anyway, yeah. So like anyway, when I was really thinking about that being Austin Powers and the connectivity, I was kind of like really kind of slowing down and calming down at the same time. But still, all things happening, and like not one word being said. Um, so like I've kind of maintained a little bit of a calm attitude about that, only because of that. In any case, yeah. So like that's what I think about it right now. It's going to be the name of the book, Principles of Digital Audio, William Pullman, and the pole. I've heard Clinton refer to the poles. I've heard that quite a bit in political science. The poles now seem to be like the author William Pullman, the pole, knocking my sheetrock onto the floor. Now seem to be the Austin Powers movie, her in a wheelbarrow. It's kind of calmed down. Well, oh, I mean, is that what I needed to know? Well, that's what I'm thinking now. Well, yeah, maybe it is what I need to know. So like I'm kind of like staying calm about it. Okay. Um. In any case, so anyway, I'm gonna take a break. I'm already needing to take a break. And yay. Yeah, great. Well then, good. Have a good day. Okay. All right. Talk to you later.